What's happening, people? This is CJ Lloyd Webley, aka CJ Writes. You only fail when you quit. It's actually very cold in here and I'm not really liking it. But you know what? I don't know if people do this, but I do that blow, you know, the blow into the hands and you rub like this. It's just nice, man. But yeah, you only fail when you quit. So I want to talk about one experience that I had with my first play. So my first play was called Shadows. It was in London, in King's Cross. But the first piece that I actually wrote was when I was at uni, and it was a short play. And I think when you're a little bit younger, you don't really get the critique. People will just be happy that you're doing something positive. They're happy that you're not just out on the road and doing whatever. So they'll encourage you. But I think there's a shift that takes place when you start saying, this is something I want to pursue. So my first play, got my first short amateur production when I was at uni. It was okay. It was what it was for the time. And that play helped to springboard me to be able to get onto my masters. So the course leaders saw potential in the stories that I was writing, but perhaps I just needed a bit more understanding of narrative, understanding of story and how plays work and how films work even, and about the narrative arc and character voices and all of that. I didn't really know any of that when I was doing my undergrad. I just knew that I enjoyed writing. So of course I'm going to London, I'm feeling on top of the world. I'm like, okay, I've got onto this course doing my masters in creative writing for screen and play, so I'm here because I can write. And that was really the energy I was coming with. Yes, I wanted to learn, but there was this thing that was like, wow, people have enjoyed watching the pieces I've done before, so I must be okay at writing. I didn't have anyone who'd given me critique, possibly because also the circles I was operating in, nobody was really in that space. I didn't have any theatrical connections, so anyone who saw anything was just going to say it was good because they didn't really know any different. But when I got to London, obviously you're around people, particularly on the masters, you're around people who are quite experienced, so probably in their 40s and 50s that have been writing for years but just want to tune up. So we did an exercise on the course, and it's still an exercise I use to this day. I actually, when I'm running my courses and workshops, it's an exercise that I do. So I essentially say, imagine that your characters have been trapped in a space. What is this space and why can't they get out? And you have to create the story around that theme. So the play that I thought of was a concept called Shadows, and there's 3 prisoners locked in a cell, and obviously they can't get out. So that was my initial story, and it ended up being the first play that I had produced in London. But before I even got to that stage, I had this thing called workshopping. So I basically I took this kind of draft little short script that I had of the piece, and there was a director, and he was essentially gonna go through your piece and see where you could improve and give you a few pointers to make it better. Now, bearing in mind I hadn't received critique before on my work, so it was a new experience for me because it helped now to shape my thought process to say, actually, critique is about making you better. There are different types of critique. Some critique is just to say, actually, I don't like that, or it's not for me. But critique in general, the way you should see it, is that critique is actually to allow you to look at areas that might need improvement. I didn't have this mindset before I went into that workshop. So I've gone in there now, I've got my piece, I'm like, okay, cool. So I know that this piece is about 3 black men in a prison cell. So I went into this workshop, and the piece at that particular time, it was set in America, because we always watch films, the Shawshank Redemptions and all that, Life with Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence. We see these films and a lot of the time they're set in America. So I just set my play in America. I didn't really put any thought process into it. I just said, I feel like I want this to be an American piece because I can just see people with an American accent just doing the piece. And so when I went into this workshop, the first thing the director said to me after we'd read it, it was like, well, why is it set in America? I didn't really have an answer for that because it's just what I'd seen. I just thought, well, I've seen Shawshank Redemption, so I just thought I'd do like my own version, but And then he said something really interesting to me. First he asked me why, and then he said, but we need the stories that you know about. So we need the stories that are set here, like what's going on here, where you're from, and who are the people that you know. And like, this took me back a little bit because I wasn't expecting that kind of questioning. I was just expecting really for him to say, yeah, this is a really interesting story, keep going, keep grafting, do your thing. But actually he critiques me, and everything that he said, at first it felt overwhelming and disheartening, because I was like, oh, well, he doesn't like my work, and this is the first director that has ever really read my work, and he doesn't like it, so where do I go from here? But then when I gave it a little bit of time, I started to think, actually, he's right. Why am I writing about another experience when there's enough going on where we are? And so that interaction there helped me to understand the power of critique. And since then, it's only motivated me to continue writing the stories that, one, resonate with me, and I'm also able to draw on the experiences of those that I know and those around me and craft that into a narrative. So that feedback there actually allowed me to go away, rewrite the story in a way that spoke more to me and the people from my community. And it gave me a sense of purpose, really, because I was able to start then going, it gave me a new lease of life, really, to start writing stories that I cared about and that I was able to have an opinion on or ask questions of the world. So that was the first play I ended up having produced. And since then, I've really started to understand the power of critique and the power of getting people in your circle that aren't just going to say, yeah, that's great, yeah, that's an amazing piece, oh, I can't wait to see it, but actually say, okay, well, why have you put that in there? What does this mean? What does that mean? And as you start redrafting, the questions will become less and less. The people that are reading your work, they're actually your audience. They will be coming to watch the piece. So if people are in your circle that have a little bit of experience, or what we call dramaturgical experience, so they understand story and narrative, these are the people that you want to ask you questions, because you'll be able, if you can start answering those questions that they're asking, rather than take a back seat and say, oh, I don't know, then you know your purpose, you know why you're writing this piece and why you've put things in there. So you only fail when you quit. Because after that first experience, which was very new to me as a new writer from Birmingham, or going to a new city, not having any connections there, I could have taken that and said, oh, well, he doesn't like my work and he keeps asking me questions, so maybe this writing thing's not for me. And then I wouldn't have had the opportunity to reflect, and I wouldn't have had shows produced in London, and I wouldn't have had shows produced in Birmingham now also, because I would have just given up and not taken the critique on board. So critique, when done in the right way, is actually something that's supposed to inspire and allow you to have a new focus and a new motivation to complete your story or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve in life. Critique is not there to put you down, it's there to actually lift you up. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please stay motivated, stay grounded, and continue to work hard. Please hit the subscribe button if you've enjoyed this video and you would like more content like this. Until next time, peace and love. Take care.